All right, how you all doing tonight? Good to be with you guys. I too will try and stay in the box. I have been here for a long time, for about 26 years, most of my life, more than half of it at any rate. And I run a business that helps technology companies to land in Asia, and increasingly helps Chinese companies to go overseas, which is really fun, to all sorts of different markets. I also do some work as a prof at a business school down in Shanghai, and teach emerging markets in Chinese history. So it's great to be with you guys. Nice to soak up a lot of really interesting different talks tonight. And I'll try and be brief. I'm going to try and lay some of what I talk about with a historical perspective, and I hope that's okay. I know that's not where necessarily everybody's head is always at, but let's see if we can expand our time frame a little bit this evening if we can. So let me see if I can operate this thing properly. I've been told to look at you guys in the back. There we go. Cool. And you can't see you guys in the back when you're up here, which is interesting, but doesn't really matter. So the meditations. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Marcus Aurelius. Anybody heard of Marcus Aurelius? All right, there you go. Marcus Aurelius was he ran the world. He ran the entire Mediterranean world in the 2nd century AD. And he was raised as a Stoic, and he was a philosopher king, essentially. He was a philosopher emperor. And he didn't want to be emperor, right? He didn't want to run the whole show. He didn't want to have all the responsibility. He loved thinking hard and writing about it, and his writings come down to us in this day and age as a book called The Meditations. So I'll share with you 5 meditations that I think might be relevant as you hustle, because we all hustle, right? We all work so hard at what we do. We all are under so much stress to figure out how we're going to pull this off with whatever we do. I know I do, running a business, and it's very, very difficult at times, balancing that with family and other pieces. And so I think it's worthwhile to consider some of these things that I'll share with you. So the first meditation that I'll share with you is why. Why are we doing this? I assume many of you are interested in money. I certainly am. Many of you are interested in fame. Many of you might be interested in power. And these pieces are important, but I think it's worthy to pause and consider other people who had it all, right? And MC Hammer might be one person you can consider. Marcus is another one to consider, right? He had everything. He had the entire known Mediterranean world, the civilized world, right? The counterpart to that at that time. What's happening in China during the Roman Empire? Who knows? What's the analog in China during the Roman Empire? There is one, right? It's a very important one. It's the Han Dynasty, right? So the Han Dynasty is contemporaneous with the Roman Empire. And the Han Dynasty is this extraordinary period of solidification, right? And where the dynastic cycle is really formed for the first time here in this part of the world. Same thing is happening in the Mediterranean world. Marcus runs the whole show, and he hates it, right? Flash yourself ahead 1,000 years to China in approximately the 11th century, right? There's a guy named Huizong. Anybody remember Huizong? Some of the Chinese folks in the house might know Huizong, right? He was the penultimate Bei Song, Northern Song dynasty emperor. And he had a very difficult time too. 6,000 of his paintings remain with us today. He had this outrageous calligraphy. He wrote calligraphy with this extremely sharp, cool style. You can look at him online, and it's very, very distinctive, beautiful, remarkable guy. And he lost the entire empire. He lost half the empire to the Jurchens, right? They kidnapped him, and they took him up to Harbin, and they made a puppet out of him, and they made his life miserable, right? He had it all, and he lost it, right? And what he really wanted to do was paint, right? He didn't want to rule the empire, right? Any more than Marcus did, right? These people, they didn't want to have this responsibility that was upon them. So when you think about things like fame, right? I know many people in my life, I've lived long enough to know people who've become famous and hate it, right? And then the rest of their life is spent chasing anonymity, right? It's an ironic piece, and I'm sure it's a simple meditation that many of you probably pondered. And some of you may enjoy fame, many of you may crave it, but it's a very, very slippery, double-edged piece, right? Because once you have it, you're going to be looking for anonymity. So if you have anonymity now, if you're anonymous, savor it, enjoy it. It can be a beautiful thing. Similarly, wealth is like oxygen. It's important. You can't live without it. Money, you need to breathe, right? But too much is pointless, right? What's the point? You're going to spend the rest of your life trying to give it away. So be balanced about how you think about these things as you pursue your venture, because the power, the wealth, the fame, may not be exactly what you really want. And you may have to be figuring out how to disperse it all once those of you who are arguably fortunate enough to attain it actually do. Second meditation, oh, boom. Somebody already hit me off there? Okay, boom. With whom, right? So who are you going to do this with? I think we've talked about, other people have referenced this, and I think this is a simple meditation that is something that you're no doubt familiar with, but pick cool people to do what you're doing with. Life is too short, right? If you're working hard at a startup, if you're working in an organization where people aren't cool, where people aren't people you respect and like, get out, right? Seriously, hit the road, get out, quit, move on, dissect yourself. You cannot do a startup, you cannot do an organization by yourself, obviously. You need good partnership and you need cool people to do it with. So if you're stuck in a situation where you're working with people who do not complement you, who do not reflect your values, who do not make you feel strong about who you are and reflect your vision in a complementary way and balance what you're doing, you need to move on quickly, right? Because you're going to waste your time. So many of the startups, I've worked with dozens of organizations over my time, and the difference between good and great is always comes down to the founding team and the people, in my opinion. Okay, to whom, right? So it's lovely to be able to work with good people, and we get obsessed and we all work extremely hard, and everybody would say I give my job 110%, I give my startup, my effort, my vision 110%. Everybody works like that in order to pull things off, but please, right? It's not simply about you. If you pursue your work in that sort of fashion, invariably you're going to wind up in a situation where it's the sound of one hand clapping. You have the echo and nothing, no one to give back to, no one to share your success with, no one to enjoy your time with. So if you have a family, make sure you give time to your family. If you have a significant other, make sure you give proper time to that person. If you have your parents and you love them and you respect them, make sure you give time to them. Or whomever it is that's important to you, the community, whatever fashion it is, you have to have time for that, because that's what supports you when you have the wherewithal to pause and think and be successful and reflect. I'm a dad. I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I read to them, right? And I chip away at reading. They have no need for me to read to them, but it's a privilege. I ask permission to read to them, and sometimes they grant it, and sometimes they say no. We read things like War and Peace, right? I've finished War and Peace with my older daughter. It's a beautiful, beautiful process. It takes a long time to read War and Peace for the kid, aloud, right? It takes a long time, but it's wonderful. And believe me, every single time when I wanted to go and do that, I had plenty of emails I had to write. I had plenty of proposals I needed to get out. I had clients chasing me and demanding things. Make the time, right? Because then it'll be gone, right? Once I have a 30-year-old too, who, and he's gone, right? Of course, he's still in my life, but you can't read to a 30-year-old. It's over, right? So once that happens, it's done. So while you have the opportunity to share with people, be methodical and thoughtful about that. All right, boom, what did I turn it off or something? All right, boom, there you go, where? All right, so here's where we are, right? We're in China. And if you guys are, those of you who are in the room, how many people would identify themselves as ethnically Chinese? It's hard to tell from way up here. What do we got, half the room maybe, or a third of the room? God, there was only like 2 hands, that's ridiculous. All right, so, well, for those of you who are, my wife didn't even raise her hand. For those of you who are ethnically Chinese and know it and are proud of it, great, right? And you should be, it is an absolute remarkable privilege to be the generation that you are, right? Think about it for a minute, right? Your parents' generation, your grandparents' generation, their parents' generation went through remarkable, unending, vile chaos, right? Right? Think about it. Meditate on that for a little while. The extraordinary privilege of your generation, if you're ethnically Chinese, right? And if you're not, if you're from wherever you are in the world and you're here, it is also a remarkable privilege. If this place gets you frustrated, because it always does, and if the people who are our hosts here get you down and make you want to cuss, of course they do, and of course it happens, but do not lose your cool. You should be humble and you should be respectful about the opportunity to be here. You should be a good guest, right? Because this is an extraordinary privilege to be here. Never lose your cool, right? Always remember that it's a privilege to be in this extraordinary civilization. It is, right? And if you're Chinese and you're taking yourself from here and heading out, right? So don't let the news cycle get you up and get you down. Keep a broader perspective and remain humble and proud wherever you are. And if you're here, we're in an extraordinary opportunity to be in China, wherever you are, Shanghai, Beijing. This is an incredible place. What else? Take time to do something beyond your work. Simple as that. I do my best to try to meditate. I do my best to try to chip away at my Chinese reading. It's hard, right? Been at it for a long time. It's always hard, right? Don't give up. Keep pushing, but always have these other pieces to your life of what you're doing beyond simply your work, right? If 100% of what you're doing is your work, you're going to have nothing else to enjoy when you achieve whatever it is you're supposedly going after and achieving. Make sure you've got time for other things to enjoy, so that your life resonates and is rich, and the people around you find you interesting to be with and complement what you're doing. Please remember that all of us are, on some level, are involved in the U.S.-China relationship, are involved in the China-global relationship, are involved in the East-West relationship. This dynamic is going to be fraught with speed bumps, right? We have not, and some of which we can't even imagine yet, right? The current dynamic between the trade war that's on, or the difficulty in terms of unemployment that's burgeoning here in China. Nothing. These are nothing, right? Things can get very serious. Things will indeed get very serious within all of our lifetime, right? Much more serious than they are right now, right? And there'll be xenophobia that will be profoundly ugly and difficult that you'll confront in one fashion or another in your time. Maybe here, maybe somewhere else. Maybe if you're Chinese, maybe if you're Western, or maybe you're someplace from somewhere else. You'll confront this in a profound way that is infinitely worse than anything we've dealt with so far. So we've got to buckle up, we've got to be cool, and we've got to remember, as people who are nuanced and understand the relationship as it is right now between, who appreciate the extraordinary opportunity to work across culture in a place like Beijing that we do, to remember that when the going gets tough, because it will. It absolutely will, for your children, for yourself, and we have to have the courage, I think, as people who have been through this and enjoyed this, for all those people who do not understand this cross-cultural dynamic, to stand up when the going gets tough and say, you're wrong. All Western people are not like that. All Chinese people are not like that. And it may sound simple and trite, but trust me, right? I've had a loop or two. These things will come. Maybe we see portents of it right now, right? Be brave and be strong about defending the dignity of all these people that we have the honor to work with today here in this city. So with that, I will. I'm not going to go backwards. I'll draw to 5 minutes. I'm going. Let me see. There we go. Boom. Oh, sorry. There you go. Anyway, thank you. A pleasure to be with you guys tonight, and look forward to hearing the rest of the speakers. Thank you.